Hi, I am live. It says you are live. It's all the way live. Boom, 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 boom. All the way live. I hate when people sing on the internet, especially if they can't sing very well. And I don't think I can. I went through a period where I really thought I could sing well. Um, I was pretty delusional, I think, about that. But what I'm not delusional about is organized stalking, harassment, and living my life as a targeted individual. So I did a whole rambling for 2 hours, which probably is for the best not to have a 2 hour video. But in my description, it said it was good background. So if you're cleaning your apartment, your home, well, something like that, maybe you're going for a walk or a jog, you might listen to it like a podcast. But anyway, this one won't be nearly as long. So I live in Bothell, Washington, Washington State in Snohomish County or Kings. Actually, where I live, it's right on the border, I think, but technically it's Kings County. I've lived in Washington for about 5 years. I moved here because I came in to about 2014, not to Bothell, but to Edmonds. And I just thought, oh my God, it's so beautiful. A friend of mine has some tickets to go to this opera, and I came to help her take care of her kids. And it was just beautiful. I just fell in love with the place, especially Edmonds, downtown Edmonds. It reminded me, we came in the summer, so there's lots of beautiful things that are happening. It's like they have this thriving art community. And it reminded me of Berkeley um, downtown Edmonds. It's nothing like Berkeley, but I think at the time it just kind of reminded me of it. So anyway, so I moved here, and I moved here because I was being targeted. My targeting started in San Leandro. I noticed it in about 2016. I realize now that I was being targeted before that. Don't know when, don't know how long, and I'll probably get into that a little bit later because I think these things, there's various ways you could go about how someone becomes targeted. And so I'll touch on a little bit about that. I can say this: no one who's targeted actually knows exactly why they're targeted. They don't know exactly when it started because this is all information that is kept from you in order to disorient you and to kind of keep it going. So, but I noticed it in 2016. So you might say, well, what do you mean you're targeted? How? What does that mean? So basically, it means you get on a watch list, which is essentially it starts to become a blacklist, and a watch list. And the ACLU talked a lot about this. There's an article, I think it's something about decoding the black box or something like that. But it's the ACLU talked about how lots of people are getting their names on this list. And in order for these domestic terrorist programs that are run through something called the Fusion Center is an organization that combines all of law enforcement. So they gather all this data and they fuse it together essentially, and they make sure that all of the law enforcement, so it's all of the alphabet boys, the CIA, the NSA, the DHS, and all that information is gathered and sent to local and state law enforcement. So Fusion Center gathers it and then makes sure and disseminates it. And so somehow your name gets on this list. And lots of people, they say sometimes that there's kids on the list, like 3-year-olds and stuff. I don't know anything about that. All I can say is that I know that I think that I'm about 85% sure that somehow I'm on one of these. And then you just start being essentially bullied wherever you live. People come into the neighborhood that didn't live there and they start doing things to you. So they tamper with your car, they might key your car, they might put a hole in your radiator. When you're not home, they come into your apartment and they do weird things like move things around or take small things. So they might put some holes in your clothes or take a pair of your shoes. And it's the kind of thing that if you were to go to law enforcement and say, hey, someone broke into my apartment and they took my shoes or put some holes in my clothes, of course it would sound idiotic, because that's not why people break into your house, right? People break into your house to steal money, jewelry, appliances, electronics, whatever. They're not going to come in and put holes in your clothes. No one's going to believe you. And these kind of things continue over and over and over again to, for one, make you crazy, and to get you to do things like keep calling the police and doing things like that. So then they start to discredit you. Um, Yeah, so that's what targeting is. And there's other things that go along with it. There's something with the direct energy weapons where they can start to make you feel your body have a general malaise and have pains. And these weapons are weapons that they definitely have. The military industrial complex has these weapons that they would use on crowd control. And so people who are adjacent to local law enforcement, or people who you could buy these on the black market, and they can just start, essentially hitting you with these weapons. I used to have a lot of chest pains when I lived in California and San Leandro. I was like, where are these chest pains coming from? Like, I really had no idea. And I would go to the doctor, and the doctor would say, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't have it. And that's the other thing, getting you to keep going to the doctor. But anyway, there was nothing that they found. So essentially, targeting is being put on a watch list, being bullied by people in your neighborhood. They start to slander you. So they tell the people that are around you that that you're being watched. And I wouldn't say they tell everyone, but what they want to do is instill some kind of paranoia, right? So if you're looking on the internet, which a lot of people do, you'll hear a lot of fantastical things about being a targeted individual. I've heard all kinds of things, like it's the spider people that live underground, it's the reptilian aliens that are doing it. It's the dark branch of the government. And I really don't know who is doing it. I'm pretty sure it's not reptilian aliens, and I'm pretty sure it's not the spider people that live under the ground. And no offense to people that believe stuff like that, I don't know. I don't know how this world works. I started to question it a lot more now, but I'm just saying, I've never seen any reptilian aliens. I've never seen any spider people. What makes sense to me is that it's very compartmentalized, and they get people that are clannish, and especially if you're in places like Seattle is a very private military industrial complex area. They have Boeing, they got some other, and I can't think of their names, but I wish I had written them down. But I went on the internet and just looked, and there's like at least like 10 different private military contractors in the area, and they just they use these people. And it's a lot of it is untraceable, because if the military uses contractors, then that's not a part. If I go to search, I get a Freedom of Information Act. I don't get any. I won't be able to get any information about that. And the other thing is, I did finally receive something back from the FBI. I've gone to all the various agencies and asked if there are any records of me, and then they'll tell you if your name is on a watch list, they have no obligation to tell you that your name is on a watch list. And that's because of the Patriot Act. And I don't want to get all into all that, because for one, I don't know a whole hell of a lot about it. But I will say that after 9/11, it's just you hear, especially the right, talk about them taking your freedoms away, things like that, and making it okay to spy on civilians. And then you remember back, I think it was like 2012, 13, maybe 2014, maybe, Edward Snowden talked about the NSA and how they were gathering all this, your text messages and emails, and listening to phone calls, like almost everybody. And then they'd sift through those things. And then if you say something or do something, and then they flag it, then you end up on one of these lists. And as I said, some people say there's like entire families, 3-year-olds on it, whatever. And you would say, well, why would they do that? Well, they get money. The military industrial complex or the people, the private contractors get paid by having more people on the list. Um, so there's that. So being targeted is probably the best I can describe it is just being bullied mostly all the time. And then you go to your work environment and then you're bullied and there's something called workplace mobbing and they do it there and they sabotage um, and say things to you. Like there's a lot of innuendos and weird things and a lot of stalking that happen, especially with people, I would say in the maintenance department, which I thought was interesting, but then it would make sense. Um, because those are people. I don't know. I just think it would be easier to get people that are working in the maintenance department to be on board with doing things like that. Because for one, I'm not working directly with them every day, so it's not like they're forming any kind of relationship and getting to know me. They're just like, oh, that's that person that they said we need to watch or whatever. Um, and it's a hellish existence because aside from being followed, which I really don't know that it would bother me if I was just under some surveillance, like follow me around. I mean, of course, that would get annoying, but really, I don't think that would be. But it's more that would be much of a problem. But more of it is that they're provoking you. They provoke. They're trying to provoke you into some kind of action. And I talked about this in my other video. Three of the targeted individuals that I have known, they're all been happen to be African American. Aaron Alexi, military guy. Myra Mays, who's an attorney who lived in New Mexico, and then Gavin Long, who was another educated person. I think he was also ex-military. And these guys were targeted. Same things, probably were hit with weapons. They're hurt, they probably had chest pains, body aches, headaches. Some people get burns on their body from these weapons. I think I've gotten a couple. Um, and followed around, slandered, whatever. Unfortunately for these guys, they ended up snapping and when they became mass shooters and ended up killing people that I'm pretty sure these people were innocent that they killed because these people, you're taunted and bullied so much and they use COINTEL tactics, and if you're not sure you should look that up, but these are tactics that they use to infiltrate groups like the Black Panthers and the Sandinistas or whomever. They would just do things to uh, they would have people infiltrate the groups and then cause havoc and chaos and make you doubt yourself. These are the things I'm talking about, like breaking into your apartment, putting holes in your clothes, poisoning your food. The CIA is pretty well known for using psychedelics in their experiments, and MK Ultra. And then, if you bring up things like COINTELPRO and MK Ultra, some people will say, "Hey, see, that's just crazy. They stopped that in 1973." Well, yeah, they told you they stopped it in 1973. Um, but who knows what's going on? You really just don't know. And I'm not saying for sure. I know that MK Ultra is happening, but I doubt that they would. Excuse me. All right. So that was the previous video that I made that actually, for some reason, didn't record the first half. So, where was I? I don't know exactly, but oh, I was talking about COINTELPRO. So, I doubt that they would develop all of these tactics and then never use them again. All right, so that's another one. Let me just go and see if I have any other ones that are playing or potentially going to play. It's a little unsettling. All right, I think now it's good to go. So I doubt that there are tactics that they've acquired and they've used that they wouldn't use again, right? So um, just using these, and there's basically these things are used to disturb, discredit, and destroy someone's life, right? Um, so that's essentially what's happening now. Someone would say you're not that, because these are things that targeted people here. Why would they do it to you? You're not important. You're no one. And I agree. I mean, I think intrinsically we all are something, right? I'm not trying to put myself down or whatever, but in terms of being under constant surveillance for 8 years, for people to be tampering with my food or making an effort to every area I go to discredit or slander or exaggerate or uh, help me implode my life in some way is just too much. I mean, even if I was on a list and they say, well, this is an undesirable person, we want you out of here. Well, then why not just kill me? Like it would be easy enough. Or why years and years and years of being tortured? Essentially, it's domestic terrorism, and I'm being, from any place I go, I'm being, the same things are occurring over and over again. And so I think that I am just the first wave, part of the first wave of something that, some aspect of what they have in China, which is a social credit program. And although I done a little bit of research, and most people don't believe in the United States that they would be able to have a social credit program. So essentially, uh, if you do good things, your social credit score goes up. If you do bad things, it goes down. And in my case, it's gone to nothing because I'm a virtual prisoner in my apartment, because every time I leave, I'm followed and sabotaged. So I don't know if it's like that in China, but I'm just saying it seems like it's something similar. I mean, there's people in China that they can't travel. They can't go outside of the country. They can't even get on the train, or because their social credit score has gone too long. I mean, gone down too low. So I think it's some aspect of that. Um, and I just, it's an experiment, unfortunately. And I think that they choose people based on if you're vulnerable. So as I was saying previously, it's like when I got in this thing, I was in my mid 40s, was divorced. My kids were adults. One of my daughter was out of the country. My son's high functioning autism on the spectrum. So these are people that cannot help me. I don't have a man in my life to protect me. I don't have a lot of family, like close knit family. I think they definitely select people that have no limited resources. Um, because from the things I've read about targeted individuals, 70% of them are women. Why would 70% of targeted individuals be women? Well, women are, not trying to say that we're not strong and all this other hoopla, but like generally women are physically weaker than men and are more vulnerable and can be easily victimized. I happen to be an African American woman, and so I'm someone that no one gives a goddamn about. I think they exclusively tend, not exclusively, but they often tend to use women that are older, because my credit is already down. If you're like after, I mean, I look damn good in my 40s, but as you get older, no one's checking for me. So it's not like someone's going to be, again, they just want someone they can easily isolate. And again, as an experiment. I can't think of any other reason, because I'm not that important. If this was purely for revenge, I'm pretty sure I would already be dead. Because why? Who has the money to have some elaborate surveillance for 8 years of someone who doesn't matter? I must matter in some capacity. Um, And it's not to mean, because there's this thing in the targeted individual community that they're the chosen ones, they're like Jesus. I'll tell you right now, I'm not like Jesus, and I don't think I'm chosen all right, but I'm not like not Neo over here. I'm just a regular old person that is being victimized by something, and because I'm someone who could be easily victimized by it. um And you think about it, you can get, I was saying earlier, there's about 30,000 people or so, maybe close to 40,000 people that live in this town. You just get 300 of them. And they use teenagers, kids, and when I say kids, like middle schoolers, the kids from like sixth grade and up or so in high school. One of the first interactions I had was I was just walking in the strip mall, like about a month into or 2 months into being in the area, and the kids came up and said, "What kind of dicks you like to suck?" And like they were following, and I was like, I ignored them. I didn't say anything. And then uh I was walking, I think I was going to pay my phone bill or something, and they followed me to, and then I started to realize, like, nah, something's off here. And these weren't like, these just looked like typical kids or whatever. I mean, it was like a group of them, like about, I don't know, 6 kids, one black kid, and there was like mostly other white boys or whatever. Um, and then after that, just a series of like weird things like that, like people honking, uh, skidding around me, like burning rubber, people following me, people spitting, not on me, but like near me, often, like too much. Like, that they're like trying to make you feel bad. Um, Taking pictures of me, weird ass shit, like recording me. And I could see if I was like doing something, but just recording me, I'm walking down the street, or recording me, I'm sitting at the bus stop, or so. Yeah, that's what targeting is like. And I think, and that's how they kind of keep tabs on you, and it's the community harassment. Um, and I think I've already said that they use fusion centers, and I think that they use community or watch people, citizens on patrol. And where I live is a little, in comparison to, like, I don't know, San Francisco or Oakland or New York or something like Manhattan, something like that. These are small towns where people have lived here a lot of their lives. A lot of these people are natives. There's something called the Seattle Freeze, and they tend not to be so welcoming. Like, I think just normally they tend not to be so welcoming to people that didn't go to the same schools and didn't grow up in the same neighborhoods, and that's all fine. But I think it kind of lends itself to people being clannish and being more open to, well, I'll participate in that. You tell me this person is some menace to my society, I don't want that person here. I will sabotage their work. I will follow them around. And ultimately, they may not know that they're doing it, but trying to um, provoke them into some kind of reaction that will make them look like the bad guy or the villain in the circumstance. But if someone keeps following you, or uh, saying stuff under their breath when they walk by you, I mean, I've had all kinds of things. People call me shit. People say "fuck you" under their breath. I'm talking about grown men. I know, just a whole host of anything you can think of, especially as African American people know this well, especially of my generation, where, you get on the elevator and people are holding their purse like you're going to steal from them, like a lot of that kind of stuff. So this is essentially what targeting is like. And so some of the questions I get, some things are things like, well, they'll look up the demographics of this area, which is, I don't know, this is like 80% white, and then 2.4% African American or something like that. And then the rest, the Asian and whatnot, Latino. I, the thing about moving is that, unfortunately, when you get on these lists, because I told you I moved from California to here, and I wanted to move here just because I thought it was beautiful, but I ended up moving abruptly because of targeting that started in California. So I can move anywhere. And eventually, it would follow me. And that's why I'm saying this is something bigger than just somebody getting revenge, right? Because I don't know. I just don't, where's the budget for it all? um, so yeah, that's it. I think I just really wanted to share my story, and I think mostly because for one, I'm getting to the point where I don't think I'm going to make it out of this situation alive. Like none of us are going to get out of it alive. Like I'll meet everybody on the other side of this. But what I'm saying is I'm talking about like I'm not going to be able to take it anymore. Like I'm not going to. I know what they're trying to do, and I'm not gonna do what they're trying to get me to do. Like I want to take charge of my life and death, and I'm not going to. I'm just not going to make it out of it. And I just don't want other people in my situation to. I don't want other people to even go through this. I don't think that you should be victimized for 8 years of your life and not know why. No one's telling you, and and it's affecting your family, it's affecting the people that are close to you, it's affecting if you have a job, and what you do affects other people. I think some of the things that bothered me the most, I'm a teacher, and then they stopped giving my students services. The maintenance people at the school site would like start blowing exhaust from the leaf blowers into my classroom. Like, and if it happened once, okay, I would say nothing. But I mean, like at least 3 or 4 times, blowing the leaf blowers during the day when we're trying to learn. And these are called noise campaigns. These are things that are just irritating that they do to try and get rid of you, try and provoke you. And I felt bad because the kids would sit there and you could look at their face like they have having headaches, or they could smell the gas, or they would have those middle school kids come over, or high school kids come over to the school and harass me. I wrote a couple of different letters saying, hey, look, emails saying, hey, these kids are harassing me. And then I would get things like, well, they did it again? Oh, it's never enough with you, Ingrid. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't want to be harassed by potentially dangerous high school students. Excuse me. But those were some of the things that I thought were the most. I didn't really like the way it was affecting the students, and they were doing it in order to agitate me, but they were taking away from their learning. There was a reading specialist. She was gone like 15 to 20 days. She's like, oh, I can't come in. I can't make it. Oh, I can't. And she was really close, like best friends with the principal. And I was working on state testing. I was the coordinator of that. And I was trying to, do the schedule and make sure the kids got all their testing done. And they kept saying, no, we don't like the schedule. We don't like the schedule. No, it's just better if we do it like this. And then they would talk and they would ice me out of the conversation. Then at the end of testing, guess what? Some kids didn't even get their testing done because the time I said to schedule, they didn't want to use it. So then the kids weren't able to take their state test. No, it's not a big deal. Like they would do things like that. And like, I'm not down with that. I guess, maybe they thought the ends justified the means. If it would get rid of me and dishearten me, make me not want to be there. And they all had to just put up with it for the school year that I was there. I think, that's not really how I felt. And it's all conspiratorial. I get it, but it's not unusual for people to ice people out of employment. And that's what they did to me. So I think that was one of the hard, because I take pride in what I do. And it's not just that. I just didn't like that the kids that needed to learn how to read, the reading specialist was actively not doing her job in order to sabotage me. So, is there anything else? I don't know. I don't think there's not a lot else to say about being a targeted individual other than it's very eerie. They do things they put a lot of propaganda and a lot of false information out there. So if you were to look it up, you're going to see first probably the things you're going to see is that it's a crazy group of people who think that they're being watched by the government. And then so basically you're going to start thinking, oh, she has a tinfoil hat on, or no, I don't. Exactly. I think shielding probably doesn't work very well. That's what people are doing with the aluminum hats. In terms of if they can read my mind, someone somewhere, because that's another thing that people think that someone somewhere can read your mind. I don't know. I don't have any clue about any of that. There's a lot of information about people reading your mind, and I think that the government's watching me, and like I said, reptilian aliens or whatever, but I don't necessarily believe all of that. I believe you get on a list, they disseminate, the Fusion Center disseminates your information to all law enforcement, and some of them participate, I'm sure, and some of them do not. They get the people that in the neighborhood that are part of Citizens on Patrol. You can look these things up. I'm not making them up. And then disseminate that information, and they start following you around and trying to freak you out. And do I think Masons and the Eastern Stars and whomever else, those people, do I think they're a part of it? Yeah, some of them. But in terms of it being some kind of satanic cult and they're sitting around drinking pig's blood or whatever, nah, I don't think so. I mean, they could. I don't know what they do in their rituals. I was once a part of a sorority, and we did little silly rituals, but we were supposed to eat worms, I know, but at one time, but we weren't eating worms for real. We were using spaghetti, like it's just a ritual. So I don't know what the Masons do. They're very secretive. But do I think that they would be part of some Citizen on Patrol group? Yeah, I do. It's not what else do these people in these strange groups do? People in sororities go around, and a lot of people during hazing get killed because they do weird shit. I don't, these aren't things I'm making up, and it's not some kind of, it's not some kind of erotic. I mean, yeah, it's not some kind of satanic erotic thing. It's just people in groups start to get mob mentality, and little black lady who they think is going to do something to them, they must bully, and people get off on bullying. If you ever go online and trolling, I mean, people get off on that shit. I mean, I myself sometimes found myself trolling people. I try not to, but it's just so fucking easy when you're disconnected from people and you don't know them and you don't care about them, and it's easy to to do things. That whole Stanford study, right? They had I saw that I think it's on Tubi actually, or maybe it's on Amazon or something, but someone made a documentary about that, and how some of the people were the prisoners, and then the prison guards, and the people who were the prison guards, because they had this authority. And essentially that's what these people who are part of this organized stalking and harassment have, a sense of authority over me, because they're watching me. They're able to put, like, break into my apartment when I'm not here. They're able to send information about me via text so they can follow me, and then at my job they can do things. I mean, that's a sense of power that they have over me, and I'm sure that shit was fun. And then they were all in the group, and mob mentality. That's why people who are Beyonce fans and the Barbs for the Nicki Minaj and all those people get off on that shit. But anyway, so yeah, that's essentially what organized stalking and being a targeted individual it is. You are an adult who is bullied and isolated, and become a pariah. And so much so that people do things to you like poison your food and break into your apartment and sabotage your work and do things like that for, I think, the rest of your life. But I don't know. Again, that's just information. This has been happening to me for 8 years that I know of. So they say that before they start actually, because see the difference between them survey, like if it is the alphabet boys and all of those people. So that's the FBI, CIA, NSA, DHS, all those groups. If it is those people, usually when we think of them surveilling someone, it's all done covertly. So you don't know because they want it to be secret. Because if you don't know, then you're just going to act like yourself, right? Like whatever you would normally do. But at some point, they want you to know. That's why they come in your apartment. I remember there were a couple of times when I lived in California, my front door was unlocked, and I'd be like, "Damn, I didn't lock my door." It would just be stuff like that, like weird stuff. So to make you question your reality. And another part of it is gaslighting, huge amounts of gaslighting. Like, I think it's one of the number one tactics. And then people just kind of come in your life. And I remember there were like friends that I met, like I would go sometimes, and when I was in California, I'd go eat out a lot. And then I just kind of met someone, like a chick as a friend, and I'm like, yeah, probably this person who's just kind of sent to my life to mess with me. Anyway, so I won't go like too far into it, but it's very deep. And if you think about uh, being under surveillance from I don't know, I guess the government, local authorities, or whatever, the kind of things that they would do to you, it's very involved. And like I said, I think some people would say, well, why would they do it to you? You're a nobody. And I would agree. I'm a no one. So that means that I think that I'm some kind of experiment. And then someone would say, well, you really think they would experiment on you? Why would they do that? Well, they have done it numerous times in the past. They, meaning governments and even private entities that are linked to the government for research. There's plenty of information out there. They tested people with radiation, like around World War II. They did the whole Tuskegee experiment, where then that was a longitudinal thing where they gave syphilis to the black men, and then those people, they passed it on to their kids and then to their wives. Is that like in the 40s and stuff, 50s? Uh, they, I don't know that this was an experiment, but they destroyed black towns, like numerous of them, and then filled the towns up. They had lakes made out of them. There's just a whole host of things that were experiments or just atrocities that happened in United States history. I'm not trying to make it seem like, oh, it's so horrible here. In Japan, they did that radiation testing to people. It's not like just isolated, and I don't think it's just one group of people, but humans have been doing things like this to each other forever. So someone like myself, who's just a black woman, grew up poor, no husband, no family, strong connections, they could just do anything to me. And then under plausible deniability, she's just crazy. She's someone we can discredit and not listen to. And so my main objective in this is to just share my story, for one, because I need to say it, and I need to say it out loud because it's happening. And hope it doesn't happen. I know it's happening to lots of people out there. But prevent people from having it happen. And one thing, all I can say is make sure that you have strong bonds with your family and people, because I think if you do, you're less likely to get in this, because if you have people around you and that you're connected to, you're less likely to be targeted. I just believe that to be true. I don't think it's ultimately true, because always true, because I know there's some people out there that do have strong connections to their family and they're still targeted. But still, I would say don't lose those. I met a lot of people online, and during that time I was dating people off Craigslist and OkCupid. Don't do that. I would say very, very skeptical. They don't do it on Craigslist. You can't even do that anymore, thank God. But I would say any online thing with people you don't know. I just wouldn't. Yeah, I think a lot of mine were people, guys, men that I met online. And just don't do things that you know are not right. Just don't do them. Best you can. Like, just don't involve yourself with people that are sketchy. And I'm not saying treat people poorly or anything like that, but I don't know. That's what I would say. But I think the main thing is just keeping your connections with people that you love and not believing that they, because another thing that I think is just out there for targeted individuals is that everybody's in on your targeting and they just aren't. And I don't know, this is psyops. These are people that have done this for years. They're able to make you think that everybody you know is against you. And I just, maybe some people are. I don't know. It's hard to tell, you know. I mean, these agencies or whatnot are persuasive, and I'm sure that they're able to flip people to do stuff. But I mean, generally, I don't. In order for things to be secretive, I don't think that they necessarily are going around getting everybody that you know to turn on you. So it's just to create a state of paranoia. So again, just want to share my story, and hopefully people will listen and not just say, "Oh no, it's crazy what you're saying." Obviously, you're just paranoid. And yeah, I'm probably a hyper vigilant. I'm definitely hyper vigilant. Um, but do I think everybody's out to get me everywhere I go? No, but I do believe that someone wants me to think that and wants me to react that way, in order to fulfill some narrative. So I guess really briefly, I just want to say what I think it's for, because I said that in the last video. I'm not reading from a script. This is all off the dome. So sorry if it's like repetitive. Um, but one of the things is creating a narrative. I think they want to create a narrative, whoever these people are. I talked about Myron Bays and Gavin Long and Aaron Alexi, all African American males. Two of them, Aaron Alexi and Gavin Long, were both military men. Aaron Alexi was discharged in his 30s because he was supposed to have schizophrenia. You know, like generally they don't, you know what the military is like? They do extensive testing on people before they come into the military. It's hard for me to believe that he all of a sudden in his 30s got schizophrenia. If you know anything about it, it happens earlier in life, usually teenage to mid 20s. No one is in their 40s all of a sudden we all got schizophrenia. It just that's another thing that you can research in terms of targeted individuals, because it usually starts to happen to people a little bit later. Not always, but the targeting. And I think, again, I think I may have mentioned 70% of targets are women. And again, why women? Why? Easy to victimize, easy to isolate. If you're a middle-aged woman, no one's checking for you if you don't have a husband and you don't have close family members. It's just not. We're invisible, especially if you're a person of color. But these three African American males, I think they were like Manchurian candidates, because those three people went out and killed a lot of innocent people. I think I may have said this. I hate when I repeat myself, but just saying, people who probably had nothing to do with it, people who weren't a part of their stalking and harassment. But to tell a narrative, yeah, those Black people, they are violent. Gavin Long had gotten to the point, and it's not hard to do, because on the internet you can get in these groups and the people are telling you, be against each other. Blacks and people of color should be against white, and white people, especially, I've been seeing a lot of stuff about in Europe and in France, and it's the immigrants coming into England and they're destroying everything, and you see them protesting and breaking down things. Or even in the United States, you see videos of the Black people going into the stores and they're stealing everything. And then, you know, like, someone's trying to weave a narrative, I think, to get us to do shit, some kind of weird race war or some kind of trying to put something out there. That's not to say that the people who are doing it aren't culpable, or yeah, you're culpable for your own behavior. Absolutely. But I'm sure for all of the people, the black people that went and stole some stuff out of the store, there were some white people that did it too, but no one's posting that because they're trying to create some kind of idea in the society. That's what I think. So that's what I think. Either we're being used as Manchurian candidates or just some pawn in some kind of narrative that someone's trying to create. And because there's no other, what would be the reason to have someone like me for 7 years, I mean 8 years, to be under some kind of surveillance that never goes, they're not gathering information to put me in jail. That can't be it, because I'm not in jail. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it seems like to me, if someone was under surveillance for 8 years, either they'd be in jail or you'd stop the surveillance. There can't be like just this never ending surveillance. It doesn't make any sense. Unless it's for some kind of experiment, or there's something that they need to get out of me. Because otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. I agree. I am not important enough. I'm not Fidel Castro or Che Rivera or, like I said, El Chapo. I'm not Malcolm X over here. I'm not anyone that anyone wants to watch. Guaranteed. Unless it's for something outside of me that is for telling a narrative or some experiment. So I just wanted to get my story out, and I wanted people to hear it. And I know that most likely no one's going to hear it. But at least I got to get it off my chest. And if it does, I hope that someone does get to hear it, because I want to say this, and of course, every person that has mental illness is going to say this. They're going to say, I'm not mentally ill. And when I say that, I just mean like, I am depressed and I have some anxiety. Hell yeah. Because no one is going to be bullied and under the amount of stress that I'm under and not feel some kind of way about it. You have to. I haven't had sunlight for half an hour on my body in a year because I have agoraphobia, because when I go outside, I'm stalked and harassed. But in no way do I think it's mental illness. Like, I'm not hearing voices. I don't think it's reptilian aliens. I'm not making this up. If I thought any of that stuff, I would definitely be taking some kind of medication or something, but that's not what this is. This is actual people doing actual stuff. And at some point, the people like the ACLU and other civil rights and human rights organizations that know that this is happening need to do something about it. And I'm assuming that once, and I hate to make it about race, but I'm sure as soon as some young white lady this is happening to her, and she is in a family and they have money and they have some ways around it, that someone will start to do something about it. But until that day happens, they probably are not going to have they're not going to do anything about it, because it's not really going to affect. If it doesn't affect someone you care about, you kind of stop caring. It's almost like it's not a great comparison, but the whole AIDS epidemic. And no one was caring when it was just gay people and African American people. But then once, Rock Hudson got it and died from it, then we all, Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan and everybody had to jump in and everybody start caring about it. So hopefully at some point, someone who is white and they care about the society as a whole, then they will start to investigate it and they'll do something about it. Because, it's been 8 years of my life And granted, I haven't always made the best choices, but I definitely would have been fine. I was fine living in San Leandro. Yeah, I was going out with some of the wrong people or whatever, but I would have been fine if I hadn't these things, this whole stalking and harassment. You can't function that way. You can't function when there's something actively trying to sabotage you and harm you. It's almost impossible, especially if you don't have any family or anything. You can't live like that. So that's the end of my rant about being a targeted individual living in Bothell, Washington, and being bullied out of my employment in Edmond School District. And I just hope someone gets something out of it. And definitely keep your family close. Take care of your body. Keep doing the things that you love, no matter what. Even if for a day or two you're feeling like you shouldn't do it, that's fine. But after only a day or two, get up and go back and do what you normally do for your life. Because these are the kind of things that whoever participates in it is trying to take away from you. The things that you love about being human and being alive, and don't let anyone do that. All right, so if you got to listen to this, please subscribe to my channel. This is great information to listen to, like on a jog or cleaning your apartment. And know that I plan to, as long as I'm living, have my YouTube channel and create some content that I like. So, and hopefully I plan on it getting better and more interesting, because I know listening to some chick ramble about some kind of targeting that doesn't seem real is not fun to listen to necessarily, but hopefully to people out there that are experiencing it, you know that you have someone that understands. And if you're a family member, hopefully I was cogent enough for it to sound like not just, I know it's somewhat rambling because I didn't have a script and I didn't have lots of things to cite that, make it seem like I really have a lot of evidence to support my case. It's all anecdotal, so take it or leave it. But there are some studies out there about targeting, and they're starting to, like I said in my previous video, they're starting to realize that it's not all just crazy people that are on drugs that are running around here talking about organized stalking and harassment, that this is actually happening to people. Psychology Today had an article, and as I said previously, it's not super pro targeting. Also in the Wired, which is a technology magazine, they had an article about it that I think was balanced and fair article. It's not, because some of the people that talk about targeting, I mean, some of the things they say, I'm sure they also select people that actually have hallucinations and have issues, because some of the things that people say I don't think are happening, but I don't want to put them down because they target different people in different ways, and they very well, maybe there's something called V2K, and this is something it's called the voice of God, and they actually did this, I think, in Iraq, where they forced some Iraqis to surrender because they beamed in Allah's voice into their head, and Allah told them to surrender. This is something that actually happened, and they surrendered. So they can take whatever this technology is and have people hear something, and it's called the Frey effect, and it's beyond my scope of understanding. But it's something I know that can happen. So some people are hearing these voices, or this is actual reality. And another aspect of this that I didn't mention is the whole Havana syndrome, where people are getting dizzy. This happened to some of the diplomats, and they call it Havana because it happened in Cuba, but it happened to some people actually near the White House not too long ago. It happened to some diplomats in Vietnam. So The vice president was supposed to go over there. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And then they canceled her trip because it happened to some people. So these are things that are going on and they're just not telling us, but I won't go into that too in depth. But that Havana syndrome, so this targeting is also related to that. All right, wrapping it up here. All right, so if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't, subscribe because it'll get better. Subscribe and like my video. Thank you.